Notice how calmly the judge opens. But make no mistake, this moment sets the tone. Letters of support can sometimes soften sentencing, but in a tragedy like this, their impact may be limited. Let's see how the defense plays this.
Thank you.
I only want to confirm that the letters from my client's wife and children and his pastor, his church, and other church members were included in the PSI. They were included in my copy. I just want to make sure.
Yes,
And I saw those in the video.
they were, and I reviewed those as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Obviously, we're here for the sentencing of Mr. Gomez on these very serious charges. I want to point out some contextual evidence that came out through the investigation by the District Attorney's Office and by our office. But I want to be clear, this is not an attempt to excuse his behavior. It's not intended to do anything other than give the court some context that led to this particular tragedy. This entire thing began with a work-related gathering.
Context, he says. That's lawyer speak for damage control, giving the judge reasons to see the defendant as human, not heartless. But context doesn't erase consequence. The court's about to hear just how bad this night got.
Mr. Gomez had been in Beaumont only about a month, working for one of the construction pipeline companies, unfamiliar with the area. There was an invitation to go to these different restaurants and places by his supervisors. He felt compelled to go. The report by DPS highlights they spoke to several witnesses who were co-workers who said this was kind of an after-work gathering where they all went. Of course, once the companies realized the magnitude of what had happened, next slide please, they quit cooperating. Basically, no one would talk to DPS, no one would talk to our investigators. They kind of circled the wagons. I think that lends some credence to the fact that this was something that the companies did encourage the employees to do. The entire matter was investigated by the Texas Alcohol and Beverage Commission. And the first place they went, go back please, was Darla's Taqueria here in town. And from the TABC report, which is introduced into evidence as part of the plea, next slide, they made a determination that Darla's Taqueria had grossly overserved Mr. Gomez, and that it was contrary to basically any public sense of decency. Next slide. The next place they went for the TABC report was Temptations Cabaret. The report details, next slide, the enormous number of drinks.
This is where it hits you, 5 shots, visibly falling and still being served. This isn't just bad service. It's potential liquor liability. In many states, bars can actually be held civilly responsible for overserving a visibly intoxicated person who later causes harm.
He was served, including one where he was served 5 shots at the table and seen to fall down by the waitress, and she still served the drinks at the table. They determined that they had clearly overserved an intoxicated person. The big question here that I had when we began this case is, how did he end up going on the southbound on the northbound lane of 69? And he was staying at the time at the AAA RV Park, which is located down here on, I believe it's Old Port Arthur Road. And his route of travel would have taken him from Temptations Cabaret down through that, I believe exiting and going down Old Port Isabella Road. Next slide. Obviously, he missed that exit, and he came down, and there's another way that you can go down 69 southbound to likewise get back to the RV park, and that was his plan at the time. Next slide. The problem is, and soon after we looked at this and investigated it, and they had the GPS data from his phone, he exited, he turned down Martin Luther King, and he came to an area where he would have gotten on the ramp to go up to the southbound lanes of 69.
And there it is, the fatal wrong turn. Think about this. One poorly marked sign, one impaired driver, and in seconds, a decision that destroys lives. It's hauntingly common confusion, mixed with intoxication, creates tragedy on autopilot.
But, next slide, there was this sign, one more slide closer, right there on the ramp, it said road closed. Now, I believe what they meant to say was lane closed, and they wanted you to go around that and get on 69. But when he was confronted with this road closed sign, he took a left, which is what the detour sign seemed to indicate, went down, and then got on the exit ramp for the northbound headed southbound. And it's common here, I've seen it in several places where they have divided what were one-way service roads into two ways, and he assumed that was what happened. Of course, that led him on to the southbound, going southbound and northbound. That's how he got there. Next one. Salvador Gomez, I want to congratulate the probation department here in Jefferson County. They did an incredible, very thorough, and I think very even-handed and fair pre-sentence report. But a little bit about who Salvador Gomez is that came out through the report. Next slide. He was a military veteran.
Here comes the emotional pivot, the defense reminding the court that Mr. Gomez isn't walking away unscathed. In legal terms, arguing mitigating factors, aspects of the defendant's life, or condition that could reduce his sentence.
He was served in the United States Marine Corps, was honorably discharged. Next slide. He's always worked. He graduated high school in '91. He attended the police academy in 1992. He was a deputy sheriff in Cameron County until he had an off-the-job injury where part of one of his fingers was amputated and he could no longer continue as a deputy sheriff. At the time of this, he was employed by ExxonMobil as a piping superintendent. He's been confined to a wheelchair since this incident. He's had tremendous injuries. He's going to suffer from those injuries probably for the rest of his life. Next slide. And as the PSI points out, that something we would ask the court to consider is that does reflect some personal consequence for his actions in this particular case. The PSI and everything we see indicates that he's a very stable, loving father and husband. He's been married since 2001 to the same woman. He has 4 children. He active in his church. There were several letters of support from his pastor and from other members of the congregation included in the PSI. Next one. The probation officer noted that he thinks of the victims daily. He knows their names and has a personal connection because one of them is in very close age to his own children and another shares the same birthday as his daughter. Those are things we'd like the court to consider from the PSI, and we'll have a closing argument. Thank you.
Today calls Christopher Stack.
Good morning, sir. If you please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you, sir. You can have a seat.
You married?
I was
When were you married?
about a year and a half ago.
And now, the emotional center of this entire case enters the victim's husband. This is where the courtroom stops being about law and becomes about loss.
More than about an expression of that loss and devastation on the Eisenhower and the Marty family. It's an easy decision. Just like the state is going to ask for, just like Mr. Carr asked for, the maximum. But this court knows that our criminal justice system requires that we look at more factors than that. Because our criminal justice system is about more than punishment or an expression of loss and devastation. This court has a difficult job because you have to distance yourself from, I know, what we all personally witnessed and felt hearing that testimony. Pain that we saw. It's difficult, but our criminal justice system says we have to look at different things. And so what are the things I would ask this court to look at? My client's acceptance of responsibility. He has never once intimated to this court he was not guilty. We were discussing who should do the punishment since day one. He has always wanted to accept responsibility for his actions on that day. And I can tell you from speaking to him, and I think it came through the stand, since I first met him, he has been extremely remorseful about you. He didn't want to talk about the impact on his family who's present here in court, his wife, his children. Because he knows, he told me, don't put them on the stand, because whatever they're suffering is nothing compared to what the Eisenhower and the Marty family is suffering. He understands he's going to prison. That's what's going to happen. It's what has to happen. But he does want to try to do something with this. And as became clear, and it's clear in the PSI, religion has been a big part of his life, and his children's lives, and his family's life. He didn't ask the Eisenhower and Marty family for forgiveness because he knows he can't forgive himself. And he knows there'll be other things that he'll have to answer for in the future. I wanted the court to be aware of some of the factors that led to this. Not because they excuse in any way Mr. Gomez's behavior, nor does he want the court to think excuses his behavior. But to ignore those factors in doing this, two establishments that grossly overserved an intoxicated person, violating the law, violating their commitment to their patrons and to the citizens of Jefferson County, that has to be considered. The ongoing, never-ending, incredibly confusing signage construction that does.
There's no legal jargon here, just raw humanity. Grief turned into resolve. When victims ask for the maximum, judges listen closely. This moment carries more weight than any legal argument we've heard so far.
Doesn't seem to make any progress, only continues to put people, those are things that could cause not simply an intoxicated person, but any of us to end up in that situation going the wrong way. To ignore those factors, excuses, endorses, and will not change anything about those things that are impacting the community. We trust that this court is going to impose a sentence that's fair and just for both parties. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Nichols?
Thank you, Your Honor. Judge, you heard how these crimes have ripped two young families apart, ripped a community apart. And yes, as devastated Mr. Gomez's family as well. But they get to see him. They get to visit him. And at some point, he may be released. I'll submit to the court the physical evidence in this case would have been horrendous, and I'm glad we did not have to have the family sit through that. But the magnitude of this crimes, and the loss they caused, I think, calls for the maximum sentence allowable under law, Your Honor. Each case is punishable by 2 to 20 years. Under the provisions of Penal Code Section 303B1A, the court can run those consecutively, stacked on top of each other. That is what I'm asking the court to do. 2 maximum sentences with deadly weapon findings stacked on top of each other, along with a maximum sentence in his third case, the felony DUI, which doesn't really affect anything at the end of the day. 20 plus 20 is 40, and that's really not enough, but that is the maximum allowed under law, and that's what I'm asking you to do on behalf of the Marty family, the Eisenhower family, Christopher Stacks, Boston Carr, and their entire faith community. The one reason all these people, including the Gomez family, are here in this courtroom today is because of what he did, what he chose to do.